Hello, this is Kirill from forexboat.com and welcome back to the course on money management. Today we're going to talk about why the fixed ratio method of Ryan Jones is actually safer than the Larry Williams method. As you remember, in the Larry Williams method we had the trap. It's a concept that we labeled the trap. It's not an actual trap, but it feels like a trap when you actually stumble upon it. So even if we had the stop loss equal to the take profit and equal to 50%, the actual effective ratio of the stop loss to take profit was always 1.5. So this is an example of where you earn 3 units of currency, and then on the next trade, if it is a loss, you actually lose 4.5 units. So that ratio 1.5, it can be different depending on the Larry Williams setup, but the whole principle of the trap was that your stop loss will always occur after your previous take profit. So even though you think that your take profit and stop loss are aligned, in reality, the risks are skewed towards the stop loss, because it makes sense that every next trade is going to have more and more and more volume, and therefore whatever you earned in the previous trade, your stop loss is going to eat that up, plus eat up more, so covering some of the trade before that. And depending on your setup, this can actually cause a drastic negative effect on your account. A lot of traders fall into that trap. They don't expect it, they don't know about it, and therefore they are not prepared for the skewed effective stop loss to take profit ratio. So let's see if we have the same trap in the fixed ratio money management method by Ryan Jones. Let's say this is our exponential growth, which we were talking about previously, the fixed ratio method. This is what we get using the fixed ratio method. And the trade that I've outlined with red, let's say we didn't earn a profit there, but let's say we earned, so we got a loss on that trade. So we got up to here, and then instead of earning a profit like that, the trade brought us a loss. Well, because we've kind of agreed in this example that the stop loss equals to the take profit, what's going to happen is we're going to lose money, but because we're trading with the same volume as on the previous trade, we're actually going to lose exactly the same amount of funds that we earned in the previous trade. So minus 2 units. So what does that mean? That means that the effective stop loss to take profit ratio is equal to 1. So just to reiterate how we get this ratio is we look at the stop loss that we incurred in the current trade and divide by the take profit of the previous trade. So 2 units on this trade of so we lost 2 units on this trade and we earned 2 units on the previous trade, so that's equal to 1. And it's also backed by the visual. You can see that we got back exactly to the level at which we were not after the previous trade, but after the one before. So let's go back to the overall visualization. So you can see that this ratio applies on this trade. It also applies on this trade. It also applies on this trade. However, on the trade before that, if it were a loss, we would actually lose 2 units as opposed to the 1 unit that we earned on the trade before that. And that's because this trade that's highlighted in red represents the first trade of this step. So once we conduct a step, obviously we increase the lot. And if that first trade within the step is a loss, and of course it's going to be like larger than the profit that we earned at the end of the step before that. So in this case, the ratio is 2, but for the other 3, the ratio was 1. So this is actually in itself already more favorable than the Larry Williams example that we had, where the ratio was 1.5. Because if you apply probabilities here, then you have 3 to 1 chance of getting a ratio of 1, an effective stop loss to take profit ratio of 1, and you only have 1 out of 4 chance, or 1 to 3 chance of getting a stop loss to take profit effective ratio of 2. And if you average that out, it works out 1.25. But we're not going to get into that mathematical detail. What I wanted to show you is that So for every non-first step, or for every non-first trade within a step, the ratio is always going to be equal to 1. But even for the first trade of every step, if you look at the next one, it's actually 3 units of loss that are like 3 units of potential loss versus 2 units of profit on the previous trade. And then if you look at the next one, it's 4 versus 3. So the ratio is going down. So it was 2, then it became 1.5, then it's going to become 1.3, and so on. So what that shows us is that within a step, any trade, except for the first one, carries a effective stop loss to take profit ratio, which is exactly what you're expecting. So if you set your stop loss to equal take profit, the ratio is going to be 1. If you set your stop loss to be twice as large as your take profit, the ratio is going to be equal to 2. But for every first trade in each step, this ratio is actually going down. So overall, this method is much less riskier. There is a much lesser chance of you falling into a trap, if we can call it that in this case. And even if you do, the effective stop loss to take profit ratio won't be that high and won't eat into your account that much, especially if you're further down the track in this fixed ratio money management method. And that highlights and illustrates that the fixed ratio trading method is safer than the Larry Williams method. That's all for today. I look forward to seeing you next time, and until then, happy trading.